Charles, when Karis was speaking to that one farmer who was protesting, he said that one of the issues that pushed farmers out onto the streets was talk of this Mercosur deal with South America. Tell us more about that.
That's right. The EU and the Mercosur bloc, which includes Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay, had been stepping up their talks to finalize this trade deal between the two blocs. As a reminder, the deal with the EU has been stereotyped in the media as a German cars for Argentine beef agreement by critics, meaning that it favors two fairly narrow but powerful industries in the two blocs. Negotiations between the two sides started in the late 90s, early 2000s, and a text was only agreed to in 2019. But the EU has since come back to the table asking for more guarantees on environmental commitments before the deal is actually ratified by the EU Commission and by each individual EU member state. It would create about a market of about 780 million people, so a huge market with trade volumes of 45 to 50 billion euros a year. EU exports like German cars or French wine, for instance, would be sold in that South American bloc without any tariffs being applied, leading to about 4 billion euros in savings every year. And Mercosur goods, on the other hand, well, they, like Argentine beef, they would benefit from import quotas with either tariffs being scrapped or preferential tariffs.
And those quotas are what's worrying farmers.
Absolutely. They're concerned that in spite of the quotas, they'll flood the European market with cheaper goods that aren't subjected to the same strict EU standards. We saw on the pictures some tractors saying, let's not import what we don't allow at home. So that's what that refers to. For instance, one of those EU standards that's been talked about a lot is this obligation to devote 4% of arable land to non-productive fallow areas in order to allow for nature to recover, to foster biodiversity. There's also regulations over the use of pesticides that aren't the same between the two areas. Under the deal, that hasn't been ratified yet, depending on the type of agricultural goods. Import tariffs would be entirely scrapped, for instance, for limited quotas of honey, rice, sugar, or poultry. You can see there 180,000 tons of poultry a year. And when it comes to beef quotas, which is one of the most talked about products coming from South America, there would be a 7.5% import tariff, a preferential rate, if you want, that would be applied to 99,000 tons of imports of South American beef. As a point of comparison, though, in 2020, the EU produced 6.8 million tons of bovine meat. The purpose, obviously, of these import quotas is to shield, to a certain extent, European producers from this international competition.
But farmers are still worried.
Absolutely. There's a sense that perhaps this is just the first step of a longer process that might lead to more goods coming in, so they don't want to open that door at all. And they're faced with obviously rising costs, so they're concerned that these imports will take away some of their market share in favor of goods that don't meet strict EU standards for health and environmental norms. Countries like Germany and Spain support the agreements as it would boost exports, including for the agricultural sector. And it would allow also for the EU economy to reduce its reliance on other parts of the world, on the Russian and Chinese economy, especially after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. But French President Emmanuel Macron has sided with protesting farmers and voiced his opposition to the deal as it stands, a position that was reiterated by France's Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire this Wednesday morning. Let's take a listen.
There will be a tug of war. France will have all it needs to ensure the Mercosur is not signed in its current form. When France wants something in Europe, it carries enough weight to make it happen. This is what the president is doing. It's solely due to him that the accord has not been signed yet. The Mercosur agreement is not good for our livestock breeders. It must not be signed. In its current form, it will not be signed.
So just to wrap up, it looks like that EU-Mercosur board deal without France on board will continue existing in limbo for just a little bit longer.
We'll see what comes out of those talks as EU leaders meet tomorrow. Thank you very much for that, Charles. Charles Pellegrin there.